right, 10 o'clock. We ready to start this thing?
Jerry, you want to gavel us in?
Ready? Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting of the Greenwich Township Board of Education together. It's 10 o'clock on Tuesday, July 28th. I know this is a strange day and strange time. I thank everybody for being able to attend. Turn the meeting over to our business administrator, Scott Campbell.
Roll call. Jerry Michael.
Here.
Roseanne Lombardo.
Scott, you're not on mic.
Hello.
Roseanne Lombardo.
Here.
Pardon me?
Andrew Chipkowski.
Here.
Chad Kent.
Here.
Wayne Sarmiento.
Here.
Amy Vandergriff. Susan Bernacchia.
Here.
We have a quorum. Okay, as required under the guidelines of the Open Public Meeting Law, notice of this meeting was sent to the carrier post and the township clerk. It was also posted in the Greenwich Township school buildings. Everybody please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the
the
republic for which it stands, one nation,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and the first item on the agenda is approval of a food service management company for the 2021 school year. I'm asking that we recommend approval of the contract for the management of the food service program by NutriServe Food Management Incorporated. The management fee for the 2021 school year is $21,000. NutriServe guarantees a $3,081 return to the district. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Questions? Roll call. Andrew,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Roseanne,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yep.
Sue,
Yes.
Jerry. Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, I would like to, yeah, we're getting some feedback here.
China.
I think Scott's trying to mute.
Yeah.
There we go, okay. Can you maybe turn your sound down too a little bit, Scott? The first item that I would like to talk to the board about is recommended approval of the district's restart and recovery plan for the reopening of the schools and submission of approval to the county superintendent of schools. I'd like to spend a few minutes trying to hit the highlights. As you board members know, this is a very lengthy document with a number of attachments. Just a basic understanding of the overall plan. The first 45 pages are essentially boilerplate language that came to us from Strauss Esme. The state did not provide any template or checklist for the development of our plans. So Strauss Esme, our policy writers, came up with this and then put in approximate places where the appropriate appendices should be attached. The second part of your document, starting at, I think it's at page 47, are those appendices. A through, I think it's P is the last one. To hit the highlights of that, though, I'd like to take you through a little bit of the development of the plan. We have had a number of people who very kindly gave their time from over 30 different either individuals or representatives from groups. This included the members of our district, our board strategic planning committee, representatives, including the union president from our GTEA and representatives from each building, a number of very generous parents, the president of our PTO, the Department of Education, the Department of Health has been kind enough to spend hours on the phone with me, our district administration, Mr. Gorelli to represent technology, but also our student information system on course. Their representatives have met with our representatives to talk about ways that we, how we can do this and how technology can better assist us. Our school nurses have given a number of hours and will continue to do so. Our school physician has met with me via phone, our child study team and guidance. The original plan, Mr. Tarico and Mrs. Whitcraft, Mr. Gorelli, Mr. Campbell, we were working under the desire to get all kids here 5 days a week and attempt to meet the state requirements, minimum standards they're calling them, which focus heavily on social distancing, wearing masks and hand sanitizing, social distancing being a very broad category of items. We had to balance that desire to get our kids here as much as possible, with the goal, hopefully, but trying to be 5 days a week, all day, with the safety and security of our staff as well. After about 2 weeks of really trying to work out a plan that would accommodate both of those goals, we can't. And so we did switch to planning for a hybrid situation. We investigated a number of them, both in-house and then across Gloucester County. Most of them are abbreviated by some version of in-person learning for students and some portion of remote learning for students. And typically school districts went with 2 cohorts. We obviously chose maroon and gold with our district colors. Most school districts did much the same. And it's simply the placement of, in shorthand, A for cohort A, B for cohort B, and R for the remote learning day. And there are a number of different hybrids out there, but predominantly they're either AA and BB, with the R day, the remote day, fluctuating. Ultimately, because of a variety of things, and I'll talk about them in a minute, we've selected AB, R being Wednesday, AB. The other predominant one was AA, R, BB, with Wednesday being the remote day in the middle. And we did, in fact, Dr. Quint from Paulsboro and I discussed this at length, and I discussed it with other superintendents, and then we also looked at it within our district. Some districts had availability of their walking district, and we are not as significantly a walking district with our New Hornsey school. So food became, how are we going to provide our children with the food? We will be doing a grab and go. Mr. Campbell and I have met with Nutrisystem, but students are going to have to take food for more than one day, or they were going to have to, either the students themselves or parents were going to have to travel up to their school on a daily basis in order to get that. And that also then had a group of people congregating in an area that we weren't necessarily sure fit into a social distancing parameter. If we went with an AARBB scenario, that meant students on Fridays would have to take 3 days worth of breakfast, 3 days worth of lunches, which they would not even be eating for up to 5 days by the Wednesday. And I'm not comfortable with that. I also felt educationally the AARBB for one group of students was a detriment. So if your student was AA Monday and Tuesday, you learned new material, you would work on it on the remote days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but you would have teachers accessible to you, and they were typical school days. However, if you were a Thursday and Friday student, you would learn something new. I think it's hard enough for parents to support the remote learning at home, to then have to support it over a weekend while kids are thinking it's my weekend, I'm not doing schoolwork, to then have a remote day on Wednesday. So there's been a 2-day gap in their learning. They don't start back again until Monday, and
Is it Bill Gates or who's the one that's good with technology? Is it working?
it is working. I'm afraid I can't read the letters. Creamy? Yes, you are logged in. So that's ultimately why we chose ABRAB. There will be a portion of synchronous in-person learning during the day. There will be a break as students are transported home. And then, some contractual and housekeeping things we need to take care of at school. And then there's a portion in the day where teachers will be available for asynchronous and synchronous contact with students, either the students they saw that morning or also students not with them during the day. In order to make the busing situation work, we needed to divide the cohorts like this in order to provide as much social distancing as possible. Students will be expected to wear masks when they're on the bus. But in order also to reduce that cohort, we will not be offering the expanded preschool program that we did last year, which I know was a very difficult decision for us to make internally, but we will go back to the way it was 2 years ago where we offered a preschool disabled program. To be honest, we're also not really sure how successful we were going to be socially distancing and encouraging 3- and 4-year-olds to wear masks for an extended period of time here at school. I have to admit, I'm very disappointed about that decision because it was such a wonderful program last year, and we really think it was a benefit to those families and to the students. But we're trying to base our decisions on what is the safest and most educationally sound decision we can make. People who know me here at school know I color code virtually everything, and I've tried to assign a color to almost every scenario we've looked at. So having kids back in the district 5 days a week would educationally be green, but when it comes to health and safety would most likely be red, and that's the color, I've gone green, yellow, or red. I'm trying to pick as many things that are proceed with caution to give them the greatest benefit to the most amount of students as we can. So let me walk you through a little bit of what the day would look like then for students. We're still working on the exact timing. We're not sure how long it's going to take to get students off the bus, complete the screenings and things like that. But without a specific time assigned to it, students will get picked up by the bus. There will be, we are requesting aids available on all the buses. That we've requested hand sanitizer, and we're working with Holcomb on that. There are some issues with the age of certain bus runs of the children, but students would be required to wear a mask, enter the bus, hand sanitize. They will be loaded on the bus from back seats to front. So that we are limiting cross-contamination. When they arrive at school, they'll be unloaded front to back. We have scenarios all around both buildings where we are limiting how many kids will get off the bus at any given time so that they will be visually screened as they enter the building. Working in conjunction with our school physician and with the nurses, they do not feel that a mandatory temperature check of every student really provides them with the information they need. Once students have been visually scanned, if the staff completing the visual scan has any concern, those students will immediately be redirected to the nurse and to a isolation room, as we're required to have by statute now. Students will then proceed to first period. At Broad Street, they will be in the same room, socially distant. The amount of desks we can include in any room does vary a little bit by classroom. You'd think they'd all be exactly the same size, but they're not. Typically that maximizes at 9 desks over at Broad Street and 14 desks over here at New Hornsey. Students will stay in that same desk for all of their instruction, with the exception of when they're taken out for teacher PE or PE with Dr. Worley over at Broad Street. Here at Nahonsi, there will be a little bit more movement in the hallways. Predominantly, students will stay in the same room and teachers will rotate around them, but there are some classes they will have to rotate out for, most notably elective courses, just because the same group of 14 kids are not all in the same elective. PE, where they will not change out in locker rooms. That is a guideline from the CDC, but they will be encouraged to dress comfortably. And for science, if they're conducting a science lab, they will need to be in a science lab room because there are other requirements with the use of chemicals and eye wash machines and immediate access to the eye washing and hand washing and things like that. Students at the end of their day will be dismissed in very specific order so that we can load the buses again back to front. In between bus runs, our custodians, we have purchased a number of backpack. I'm not sure I'm going to get the terminology correct. They're an electrostatic sprayer to sanitize the buses in between bus runs. But students will also have to maintain assigned seats on the bus. So if later we have to do contact tracing, we're able to identify that. That's what a typical day looks like. We will not have extracurriculars until further notice. We will not be having field trips until further notice, and we will not be granting facilities usage requests until further notice. When students leave us for the day, their educational process is not finished. There will be, right now we're calling them office hours, where our teachers will be required to remain in the building after we have scheduled in the contractually required lunch and prep periods, where they will be available for either synchronous, which means live and at the same time, or asynchronous, which would be typically more canned work for students to complete at home, but teachers would be available for students to reach out to them electronically to ask questions, to get guidance. Based on the survey, one of the requests from parents was a greater ability for students to be able to interact with teachers and get some more real-time feedback and support as was necessary, and so that's built in. And Wednesday would be an extended day of that. Technology-wise, we will be providing take-home technology K through 8. We will not be providing it with the preschool children relative to the screen guidelines of the American Pediatric Association and limiting screen time. But all students K through 8 will have access to a laptop charger. I know Mr. Gorelli has also been working identifying any families in need of additional technology supports and how we might be able to either secure or support them in that. Other things that I definitely want to point out, we have purchased with technology cameras for every teacher and a microphone for every teacher so that they can have better quality of either recording, say a canned lesson, you know, think a lesson on telling time, and they could, you know, it's a 10-minute lesson on telling time, and then students would be able to access it from home, both the in-person and the remote instruction students, you know, at the same time or at a convenient time for the family. We are providing PPE. All students will be given a cloth face mask. They are expected to wear them when they enter the bus and for the duration of the ride. They are expected to wear them in common areas and when social distancing is not possible. Because we've tried very purposefully to set up each classroom for social distancing, desks are at least a minimum of 6 feet apart. The teacher is a minimum of 6 feet apart from students. We have also purchased plexi shields that go on every student desk so that students, when they're seated at their desk and they're completing work, they're not in close contact with the teacher or with other students. They can take their masks down. A concern for us is we do need to encourage our students to wear masks, and certainly when social distancing is impossible, it's going to be a requirement. But we understand with just the age and needs of our students, and because all of us have had to wear masks for long periods of time, it is helpful to have a breather. We are also encouraging all classroom windows will be open all day long unless there is significant inclement weather. Our air conditioning systems do not recycle internal air. They actually pull air from the outside. So this is also something helpful the breathability of the air within the classroom. And we've asked all teachers to build in, or we will be asking all teachers to build in time when, if you can take the students outside, PE teachers can pretty much, as long as it's not inclement weather, take the children out every day. If you know, our ELA, if our math teachers want to go out and have students reading outside or working on something outside and it's appropriate to do so, they would be encouraged to do that. So that we're trying to provide as much sort of time away from the mask and time and just engaged in learning without any distractions. I'm sure you have a lot of
Dr. Foley,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just for administrative purposes, are we capped at 100 people in this meeting? I understand there's people waiting to get in. I don't want to make, they might not think that we're not letting them in. Is there a certain amount of people we can, like, we're maxed out?
We'd have to ask Mr. Kent that as our expert on the Zoom meeting.
We are capped. I've been trying to get on. Luckily, I did get on, but it is capped at 100 people. It's a lot of people are complaining right now. I've been seeing it all over Facebook. It is capped at 100.
Is there a way to remove that cap from Zoom, Mr. Gorelli or Mr. Kent?
I'll take a look.
You may
Thank
have
you.
to start another Zoom class. I believe the complimentary Zoom is capped at 100. You may have to start a second Zoom and join them.
Mr. Gorelli, can you join the 2 Zooms, or can you lift the cap of 100 members in the Zoom meeting? We cannot.
It was previously free, unlimited, and it was supposed to be August 1st, but that was switched, but apparently it's
Okay.
prior to August 1st. I didn't know.
Are you speaking? Are you muted, or can everyone hear? Oh, okay.
Can Mr. Gorelli start a YouTube stream like we did for some of our other meetings, and then that way people can at least hear what is being said?
Mr. Gorelli,
Yeah.
can you start a YouTube stream of the meeting so people can at least hear what is being said?
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's working on that. Thank you for the suggestion, Mr. Chepkowski. And certainly I can stay on the Zoom meeting after the completion of the board meeting and go over much of the same information again for those who would like that information. Although as soon as we have board approval, the plan has to actually go to the county office before I can disseminate it as the district plan, and we have to obtain certified compliance, or else it is just considered a draft plan and not the approved plan of the district. Okay, so that is a lot of information about the plan, but I'm sure that you have more targeted questions, board members. Where might you like me to start? I know that you've had the plan for a few days and you've been forwarding questions to me, but what might I be able to address specifically?
Yeah, Dr. Foley, if you don't mind, Jerry, can I ask questions?
Sure.
I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't know if you wanted to speak first. It's his right. So on page 10, item 6, we talk about having adequate ventilation in the policies that's being proposed. How is this being measured? So it's one thing to say that it's adequately ventilated, but how are we actually going to determine that each room is adequately ventilated? And, you know, more days than not, having the windows open is a great idea, but overall it gets really cold. You know, we have snow, especially, you know, it's not like we're in a, you know, we're basically in the Northeast Mid-Atlantic region. So it can get very cold during the winter months. And the idea of having windows open all the time, especially for the students that are near the windows, don't you see that as a potential problem that could have for certain kids?
Well, certainly, I mean, as the weather changes, it is already in the CDC guidelines that we are expected to have the windows open as much as possible. I'm not sure the CDC guidelines are anticipating, you know, a blustery 10-degree day of December. I think they're hoping that we are further along in this. I will say that we do have quite robust heating systems in both buildings. And it is possible that we'll have to have, you know, the windows open and the heat on in order to remedy that situation. As for measuring the ventilation, I'm not sure what metrics specifically. I mean, we will be meeting the CDC guidelines. We're changing the filters more regularly than is even required by the manufacturer for the filters.
Okay. I'm just curious, like that.
But an air purification, like an air quality test, won't necessarily provide us with the data about whether or not the classroom is safe. We obviously will be doing the electrostatic misters and the ozone generators every evening to continue to ameliorate any contamination that we have in the classroom.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple more, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Unless we want to do round robin. So on page 11, subsection C3, this has to do with our contracted bus. Don't you feel cleaning the buses falls on Holcomb and it's their responsibility to do that?
I would certainly love if our employees didn't have to be delegated from other duties. But we have better equipment here on site for them to have to take the buses back to the depot in order to conduct that and then come back to complete another run. When we can do it here very quickly and move the transportation along is currently, I think, our best situation, our best solution to this.
Okay.
Dr. Foley?
Yes.
Due to, I understand we have so many people waiting to get in. You think it'd be nice to maybe recess? I know people are on hold here in the meeting, and I hate to do that, but this is such an important issue for the residents of Gibbstown. Till we can get everybody that wants to hear this in, or be able to watch, or be able to hear. I truly believe that this, when we ever have a board meeting, there's over 100 there now.
I agree. There's a lot of people waiting. It's unfair for the rest of.
You know what I mean? You think we ought to go into recess till we get up to, well, it's 20 minutes, however long it might take Mike or Chad, to figure this out.
Well, Mr. Gorelli is working on it at the moment. Mr. Michael, what would you, we absolutely can, if the board president wants to take us into recess during that time, and we'll come back in, I would say, less than 15 minutes.
Sure.
Jerry, you're muted. Jerry, you're muted. Unmute. Mr. Michael is
Yes,
there.
I think that's a good idea. Sorry about that. We'll recess now, reconvene at 10:45. That's okay with everybody.
Second. Motion to recess till 10:45.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
The only question I have, can we just stay on and mute, or do we have to log out? We log back in? How's that work?
Now you can just mute yourself and turn off your video. Well, you don't have your video on. So just people that are on, don't leave. Just hang out and we'll come back.
Okie dokie.
All right. you should be able to log in now. We are able to increase the size. So anybody that's trying to log in, tell them to try again. So it should, as you can see, we're already over 100 users.
Dr. Foley, are you there? Dr. Foley?
Yes, hello.
Hi, I have a question.
Well, we're not actually open in the board meeting again yet. The board president hasn't opened the meeting.
It's just about possibly scheduling a different time to do this again for working families and working parents who aren't able to attend the 10 a.m. meeting. Because there are a lot of families who need this information as well, but the 10 o'clock meeting did not work for them due to them not being able to stop working to join the meeting. Even if everyone can't attend on the board, if somebody can at least set up another evening meeting to just inform these other parents what's going on, because everyone is still concerned about our opening plans, and it's stressful for everybody working and not working.
Well, I think that's outside of the board meeting, and I think I can answer that question. It's not an aspect of the board meeting. I can't publicize the plan until it's voted on by the board. I absolutely have plans to communicate this in as much depth and as many times as parents feel necessary. So I can answer that, yes, we absolutely will be scheduling additional times to make this information available to our staff and certainly to the public. But I can't do any of those things until after it's board approved, certainly, but we've also been cautioned by the county office that it's only a draft until they provide us with that certification of compliance. So the answer is yes, absolutely. Be happy to schedule additional information center sessions outside of the board meeting.
Okay, so say if people needed to hear this information this evening at a certain time, even though it's not etched in stone yet because it hasn't been signed off yet, you would be able to do that and answer any parents' questions that on the information that you have etched in stone right now.
Well, none of it's etched in stone until, first of all, if the board does choose to approve it as it is written, and until the county office. I mean, I can certainly make myself available to present the same information that I've presented now. My concern is that parents will want some specific information that until we get that certification from the county office, that it would be remiss of me to provide. But yes.
Dr. Foley,
Yes.
just so that you know, we are recording this meeting, so we can provide that on the website, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. But I think Ms. Herrick's question also goes to the ability for me to answer questions, and that's the part where I would answer the ones that I could, but some of them, until we get that certification, we've been cautioned against.
I just know there's been a lot of talk about parents not being able to attend these information sessions because of the time that they were scheduled. So I think it would be helpful for everyone involved in the community who cannot attend a 10 a.m. meeting to have another session available just so they can hear what was happening in the morning in the AM session. And if they have any questions, not that you have all the answers to them right now, they can at least ask them to a live person rather than hearing a recording.
I think we can coordinate something.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I am going to mute myself then until we gavel back in, because I do not want to violate any of the rules of the board meeting.
available to connect online. I can do it on our Greenwich Township.
Mr. Kent, can you tell me if there's anyone still waiting in the waiting room, or was everyone waiting able to get in with the expanded numbers?
There are nobody in the waiting room right now. The ones that were previously trying to get in were not admitted into a waiting room because of the limit. So as they start connecting now, I am allowing them to enter. We are at
Okay,
111 participants right now.
Okay, can you keep an eye on that? And if there's anybody waiting, be able to buzz them in, or
Yep.
whatever the more technical term would be. Mr. Borelli is setting up it is already set up a YouTube link. He's going to put that out on our website, Mr. Borelli, so that anybody can also, if they have not been able to log in, they will be able to do so that way, at least to be able to watch it. All right, then it is just 10:45 by the library clock. Mr. Michael, would you be ready to gavel us back from recess?
Yes, everybody ready to resume? I believe we left off with Board Member Chipkowski had some questions.
Yeah, thank you,
Andrew,
Mr.
I'll go back to you. I'm assuming you're not finished?
Yeah, thank you for letting me continue, Mr. President. So I had a question, continuing on with the questions, and if anybody wants to jump in, feel free, because I have a whole bunch.
Excuse me, I don't want to interrupt, but Mrs. Lombardo is having a hard time getting back in. If you want to hold on.
Okay.
All right. Andrew, before you go on, I'm told we need to have a motion to come back from recess into public session. So I'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. I just had a question on page 34 regarding student teachers, item 1. Can you please expand upon that? Are we asking student teachers not only to fulfill their student teacher needs, but to get a substitute certification in the event where we don't have enough teachers to cover students? Is that how that's going to work?
No, technically they would have to be board approved as substitute teachers, and we cannot require as a district them to simply do that. We are reaching out to our mentor teachers or the cooperating teachers here in the district, and if anyone had concerns about still hosting a student teacher, then they were certainly able to say no, and we have communicated that with I believe it's Rowan College. Yes.
So why are we saying obtain substitute credentials then in the policy?
Well, we could at some point ask them, and then they would have to be board approved, and we would have to pay them, in my estimation, for doing that job, because they would be switching over from student teaching. Additionally, getting paid for substituting in the same district while they're student teaching violates some college policies.
Okay,
and it does in fact violate Rowan's policy.
So maybe we should remove C1 on page 34.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay. On page 35, we have pre-record direct instructional videos, and is Wednesdays going to be the target besides being the virtual online days? Is that going to be the target for educators and staff to record these lessons?
They can do that during, there's prep time assigned each day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. It could also be utilized on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to Appendix A, I'll just skip. I have other questions, but I just want to hit the ones that were concerning to me the most. Are we going to be, so I know you had said that we are going to check the students' temperatures daily, but are we going to check staff?
We are not actually checking students or staff temperatures daily. In meeting with our school physician and with the nurses, that data was not as helpful or as exclusionary as it might be. We could have COVID positive students who are asymptomatic. We have purchased additional direct read thermometers that they can use if there are other symptoms that they are concerned about. We are going to ask all staff and parents to certify their students daily in the morning. There's a health questionnaire we'll be sending out electronically. It's very short. It's things that parents can be on the lookout for, and also to encourage them, if their students exhibit any of those things, to keep the children home that day. With our staff, they'll come into work and submit that, because we're shifting what our sign-in policy is going to be so that we can have a contactless sign-in policy. The nurses and I have discussed the student health questionnaire survey, whatever you'd like to call it. They're not comfortable, or they're comfortable with the plan that we're not relying on that, as in if a parent hasn't completed it, the student would be refused from the bus. That's not the plan. It's a secondary sort of backup system for the nurses to then check those lists daily to see if there's any that are concerning, if there are students where we haven't seen the information from, and then they can start their well checks from there.
Okay.
What's going to differentiate a common cold from COVID symptoms?
The expertise of our nurses. We do have to differentiate, and I think the language says very specifically that cannot otherwise be explained. So if we have a student who has a history of allergies and has a runny nose, and in the nurse's trained opinion that the runny nose is related to the allergies, she would not feel the need to isolate and proceed with contact tracing for that student, because it could be explained in a reasonable fashion with another medical diagnosis.
Okay. Yeah, that was a great question.
Foley,
Thank you.
Dr. Foley, it's Dwayne.
Yes, Mr. Sarmiento.
Cold. When hopefully we're out of this by then. Let's hope for the best as a country and a globe. When we get into flu season, though, fevers, what happens then? I mean, you're putting a lot on the nurse to say, well, it's the flu or it's the COVID.
Well, and the nurses and I have discussed this, and it's what they're trained to do. We're obviously going to have to rely very heavily on the parents to keep children home when they're not feeling well, whether it's the flu or if it's a suspected COVID. I mean, truly, we try and encourage parents to keep their children home during the school year if the flu is suspected. I do understand parents have concerns about attendance policies. At present, the state has not changed any of that language. We will have to continue to monitor student attendance and send the letters out, although I think we can make reasonable assumptions when it comes with regard to educational neglect or truancy. If a student has been out and we have reason to believe it's for flu or other suspect symptoms, that we don't necessarily need to proceed with the taking a family to court over excessive attendance issues.
In the case where we suspect a student has COVID-19, I know we have the quarantine policies in place that are listed in the appendix, but can we also request them to get a test? I know other school districts such as Lakewood in New Jersey are offering both staff and students and their immediate family the ability to test on the district's, through the district. Have we considered a policy of that nature?
Well, in Gloucester County, testing is free and I would say reasonably accessible. Having been tested myself, and it was very easy to arrange. We were told by the Department of Health that we could not require families to test. In addition, once we have enacted, either through contact tracing or through, the immediate identification of a student who is symptomatic, we must proceed even if there is a negative test result with a 14-day quarantine or a 10-day isolation for a COVID positive.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a suspected positive though, right?
Well, suspected positive. Once, if a student tests or if a staff member is tested, the clock for the 10 days starts with the presumptive or the positive test. And the 10-day minimum isolation is only if at the end of those 10 days, the patient is asymptomatic at that point. And it could go longer than that if the student or the teacher continues to have symptoms.
But if they don't get tested, then
the 14-day quarantine is all that we have available to us at this point in time.
right, and that's where we're getting into differentiating between a cold, a flu, and COVID. You know, you have all the same symptoms, so if somebody has a runny nose, you're going to send them home for 14 days?
If the nurse is concerned that it can't be otherwise explained by a health condition.
Chad, do you have any more follow-ups, or do you mind if I continue?
No, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Moving on to Appendix B. So we have, in the last paragraph on the first page, we talk about washing hands, which is a good thing to be listed within there. But will we have people, for the younger kids, I assume we're going to do what we did with the pre-K and the kindergarten where they have the lines and they go in. But are we going to enforce proper hand washing? Are we going to have an aide stationed in restrooms, or is that going to be another duty period for our staff to make sure that proper hygiene's followed, at least for the immediate future, to ensure that everybody, not just staff, but mainly to protect them, but that the students don't accidentally spread anything?
Well, we are integrating supervisory responsibilities for hallways and bathrooms. They vary a little bit over the course of the two buildings. We're also going to have to look at, though, introducing some new curriculum within the classroom, particularly through health and physical education, about common sense health practices. We've also talked about here, I talked with the nurses yesterday about even providing some videos to parents in advance of the start of the school year about proper mask wearing, hand washing, those sorts of things to help. We're going to need parents and families to really support us in this as well.
Okay. Thank you. So moving on to Appendix C, if you don't mind. One question I had, and this in regards with families that have multiple students within the district, and we have the AB schedule being introduced. So if I have a student, or am I guaranteed that all my students, my children are going to be on A, or am I going to have situations where if I have a son or daughter that goes to Nahanzi, they're on the B schedule, and then I have younger kids in Broad Street School that go to A, or even within the same building together? Can we guarantee that at least everybody will be Schedule A, Schedule B?
We kept families together.
Okay, great.
That was addressed, wasn't it, Dr. Foley? You put this out saying you were going to do that. We were going to do that.
It has been our plan, and certainly if when a schedule got home, if the parent discovered that we had made a mistake, we will absolutely correct it. Our goal has been to keep families together. We split by bus run first. Within the bus runs, we then split by families. There were some other things that we needed to take into considerations, special ed student classifications, to try and keep some consistency within it. It was not an easy task. I do think we've done it 100%. It would be a mistake if a family was not together, and they should contact the school.
Great. I think it needed to be said. That was really why I brought that question up. I wanted everyone to know that we're going to work to make sure that everybody's A, B, going to stay together.
It's going to be hard enough on families.
Yeah.
It would be even harder if we had split them.
Yeah.
Can I have a I have a question on this for follow-up. Are we including the kids that go outside of our district, say to Paulsboro or GCIT and all that?
Unfortunately, we can't do that because they may have differing schedules than ours.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'd like to continue on, and this has to deal with Appendix D, and this talks about during the school day. And I just had a simple question. Are we going to mark the floor, much like we see in a lot of the supermarkets and stuff? I wasn't clear. And okay, great. So we'll know that students will stay on one side or the other and staff, and we'll control the flow. That's great. Okay. My other question is, for the older students, starting in, I believe, 5th grade, they have lockers, and we stated that no lockers will be used. Is there going to be a storage issue in any of the classrooms, or an issue with students having to carry a large number of books when they go to Nahonsi Middle School? Or since we're doing one-to-one laptops for K to 8, are we going to be able to provide them with the digital literature so they don't actually have to carry those books? And then that's just one less thing we have to disinfect later on in the year as well.
As much as possible, what they have to carry will be limited. We will use as many digital resources are currently available to us. As for storage, to be honest, we're not asking them to change for gym. What they're going to need is kind of compressed throughout the course of the day. They won't be wearing jackets, at least hopefully for the first few months of school. But we absolutely can't have an area where that they would congregate to either put these things or then go and collect them. So they're going to have to keep things at their desk, hang a jacket on the back of their desk. We'll have to work through that if we're still in this place in November.
Okay, thank you. Now, I have some additional questions in regards to art, music, computers, especially at Broad Street School. Now, I know at Nahonsi, I believe you said they're going to have those things. Are they going to continue? Are they going to have the ability to have music in Broad Street or art and on the compressed schedule?
At present, under medical advice, we will not be offering music the first half of the first half of the school year. We'll have to revisit that for the second half of the school year. There's just a problem in trying to sanitize instruments, woodwind instruments, any respiration. Here at Nahonsi, students will still be scheduled into the band period so that they'll have an opportunity to meet with Mr. Haney. He's going to have to conduct, and he and I are going to have to, we've talked already, and he's provided us some ideas. He's going to have to, we believe, continue with remote individual instrumental lessons for the band students. But we just don't see that there is a safe practice for the students or for Mr. Haney in engaging in those to start the school year.
Okay, so lessons will continue even at Broad Street, but the overall band congregation will not, just to clarify.
To the best of our ability, we'll continue with the individual lessons because they can be done remotely. It's more challenging to get the kids synced up to have, say, all the flute players practicing at the same time via Zoom. But the other aspects of music, there's just not an opportunity where it's safe to get, say, 40 band members together. It's really not even safe to have 2 kids playing their instruments and Mr. Haney having to be in there to breathe that respiration.
Oh, I understand. I just want to make sure art and those secondary things.
Computers will be sanitizing anytime where if they have to use a shared system with us providing laptops K through 8. They are much more individualized. Art will still continue with sanitation, obviously between the use of common products or individualized products whenever possible.
Thank you.
Can I follow up on that?
Sure.
If it's not safe for Mr. Haney, what's to make it safe for the rest of the teachers?
Because the kids aren't blowing directly on the other teachers when they provide instruction, or the students can be wearing masks. Where if you're playing your saxophone, it's coming straight through the saxophone unfiltered. He can be wearing a mask, but it does increase, we believe, his risk as well. So If
Right,
you're
but
another student in the room, you're breathing it, we just don't feel that it's safe, and it would be against the medical guidance we've received so far.
but we're also allowing children not to wear masks in the classroom.
When
If
they're
they're
seated
6
at their
feet.
desk and behind their plexi shield, and they are 6 feet removed from other people. Even, you know, if Mr. Haney stands 6 feet back and the students are 6 feet apart, it's just an increased respiration. For same reason as, you know, when we have sports, we don't really want the kids engaging in activities that has them heavily breathing in close proximity to each other.
Jen, is there any way we could get a video together of how a classroom is set up with the plexiglass? I think if we saw it, it would make us all feel a little better on how classrooms are going to be set up and where teachers are going to be positioned and stuff of that sort. I think if we could get a video, you know, to see something versus to hear what you're saying, I just think it would make us all feel more comfortable, especially as a parent.
Well, we are planning on doing all of that. Many of these PPE haven't even come in yet, and we're still in the cleaning process of the classrooms. But I have spoken with Mr. Gorelli, because we'd also like to provide something for kindergarten parents about starting school, for our 6th grade parents coming over to Nahantsi, because we're going to have to rethink how we do some of those things.
Yes.
Normally in the spring, we would have invited the 5th graders over during graduation practices, and we weren't able to do that, nor do we want a large group at this point in time. But we have already talked about how we're going to do that and try and provide as much information as possible. And I know people want a lot of these details. Until I get the plan approved and I get that certification, we've really been discouraged from releasing a lot of those in case they change. But as soon as we get the go ahead, we want to provide that. We think we've provided a pretty safe environment, and we want to show everybody what that looks like.
I understand you guys.
Chad, we're not
Mrs.
doing.
Carrick, we're not at the public portion of the board meeting yet. So I need to just receive questions from our board members.
I just have, well, one more general question. That's in regard for children who receive special services, PT, speech, and with the limited amount of time that they have with teacher interaction, so the 2 days a week, how are we managing that? And has that been, is there, I know we said we're going to do the best to meet the standards within the documentation, but I think it'd be good just for you to explain that and go into a little more detail of how that works and how students will be affected and, you know, or not be affected. And yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Dr. Foley.
Certainly. Well, there are certain ways that it's written in IEPs, and we have to adhere to that, whether it's how many minutes per week, how many times per year. We can utilize some in-person, some remote instruction. I'm hesitant to give a blanket answer because it really is very dependent on the student and the individual needs. We are looking at ways that we can provide it in the safest manner possible in person and during the school day. You know, whether it's the all plastic face shields or separating students and the speech teacher by movable plexi shields so that they can see each other. You know, and a lot of those things. That there are other considerations with OT and PT, with how we sanitize the equipment that might be used in between, or providing individualized equipment specific to that student. We have been busy working on those plans and making sure that we do to the greatest extent practicable and safe for students, that we meet what's written in the IEP. Mr. Tirico is here. Mr. Tirico, is there any information you would want me to add to that answer about how we're meeting speech and OT-PT?
We can't hear Mr. Tirico because
I'm going to repeat what he's saying. But essentially, they continue to get guidance from the CDC and from the state about how to meet those guidelines, and they'll continue to implement them. Unfortunately, we get a lot of guidance on a very continual and rolling basis. So I would say, I think it's fair to say that he has expressed some frustration that questions that we have asked have not yet been answered by the state with regard to those things.
Okay. Thank you.
Then the students that are out of district, as far as in a more specialized area, or we're kind of at the mercy of all the different placements for our students. So I guess we'll wait to see what they're coming back with and go from there. I mean,
We're already working with other school districts if we have students in out of district placements to arrange busing and to meet whatever guidelines that particular district has set up. They are being reviewed to ensure that they are meeting the requirements. And I know our child study team, where it's been appropriate, have reached out to the parents if they either felt that this wasn't appropriate, or to say that this is the best possible way we can meet your child's needs at this time.
Are we going to make the teachers, or enforce that the teachers have a video, that they actually do video training and not just send emails out to these remote students?
We are working on very clear guidelines and expectations. It is difficult to say that one size will fit all. There will be a hybrid of asynchronous and synchronous learning. What's going to be a little bit different is here the students will be in school 2 days a week and then away from a teacher for 2 days. But we are providing, if the board takes action on the district calendar, we will be providing 3 days of professional development on remote instruction and ways to provide engaging synchronous and asynchronous online and remote learning. We are looking at additional technology, the cameras and the microphones with which to do that. I can't say at this point in time that there is you must provide 3 videos per week and 2 days of in-person instruction, because frankly each content area may be a little bit different. If students are working on a novel, a book chat may be, it's a live discussion as opposed to a video. So we will be giving teachers clear guidelines, some professional development, and some additional technology, but there will be some flexibility within that for what's appropriate for the age group.
And how will it take in remote when it's remote? How will attendance be taken on those days if it sounds like the state is holding us to the line on that?
Well, the state hasn't provided us guideline on what their requirements are going to be, honestly, on that. We can look at it a couple of different ways, whether the student has to actively log in order for it to count as attendance, or whether it's completion of work. And again, that might be, I'm not sure we want to say that every student has to log in at exactly 9 o'clock and that counts as attendance, because if they don't then do any work the rest of the day, did we really accomplish what we wanted to? But it's going to have to be some hybrid, but frankly, we could use some more guidance from the state about what their requirement for that would be.
Okay.
Is it fair for students that are in person receiving additional training than those students that are remote? For example, science, if they have labs, how is a remote person going to participate in labs?
Well, the remote person would have a different assignment. So if your cohort is in, you would be getting in-person instruction and you would have access to the teacher in the afternoon. You would be getting in-person, and then you would have access to the teacher remotely when you're home. Say you're a maroon student, that's Monday. There are still times built into the teacher's schedule during the day when they can reach out to those remote students as well. But if I were doing a lab, I would probably do the lab with maroon students on Monday and do that same lab with the gold students on Tuesday when they're in person.
Right, but what about the all remote learning students that aren't going to be there in person?
Well, there are going to be decisions that are going to have to be made, because we can't provide the exact same experience all remotely, and that, that may mean they get the opportunity to see a virtual lab through Gizmos. There are a lot of applications. But that is certainly going to be the challenge of all remote.
Well, we want to make sure that our remote students are receiving the quality education that the in-person students are receiving as well. And I just want to make sure that we address that.
I agree, but it may not look exactly the same. I mean, it's not reasonable to expect that if we conducted a lab in person, that the family would have all of the resources and materials to be able to conduct that lab at home, or to even be able to disseminate those labs at home, which so it may have to look as a virtual reality version of the lab as opposed to an in-person one.
Okay. Can you expand a little what the aides are going to be doing once the students leave at noon?
They're also going to be responsible for that asynchronous and synchronous support to students. So it may be logging in and working with a student who is working on his math homework. If that aide is assigned to certain students, it will be her responsibility to make contact and do either asynchronous or synchronous support of that student. And we will be providing enough technology at school in order to enable them to do that.
But isn't that the teacher's responsibility as well?
It depends on what the responsibility is. Aides are to support students, and often they in a traditional classroom setting, it may simply be sitting next to the student, asking prompting questions, encouraging the student, clarifying directions. They can provide those things remotely, and that's what they're designed to do, so that the student can function in a larger, less restrictive environment. They can still provide those things in the afternoon to students, whether they're sitting right next to them or via the camera.
Okay.
Thank you. Jerry, that concludes the questions I have for this part of, just wanted to yield my time back.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Anybody else from the board have any questions or comments?
I'm on my phone now. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can see you.
Okay.
I have something, Jerry, a question and a comment, I guess. What we're doing here with this schedule is all being directed from the state of New Jersey. I think there can be a misconception that we kind of made this up. I mean, this is districts across the board, across the state. Correct assumption, correct?
Well, we did make the decision specifically about the, what it was going to look like. But
Yes, I get that. But
standards were provided to us by the Department of Education and the governor.
right, they came out with this is what we couldn't say we're going to school 5 days a week or we're not going to school at all. That decision's out of our hands. Correct?
Correct.
So you're right. So there's guidance coming down from the state of New Jersey, whether it's the DOE, the governor's office. I truly believe in talking, I live in town, we all live in town. You talk to some residents that we kind of made this plan up. Like it doesn't work. It didn't work that way. We're just trying to work within the guidelines that we were given.
Well, there were certainly requirements in place. Students had to be present for in-person learning at least one day a week. 5 days a week was available, but there were minimum standards on social distancing and what the CDC health guidelines were. We did not feel that we could meet them with regard to busing, with students eating in the cafeteria, certain classroom content, think about band, being able to keep preschool students socially distant and wearing masks if they weren't socially distant. Yes, those guidelines were provided the state. We tried to come up with a plan that worked within those guidelines.
God, thank you.
I also think we need to remember that this is constantly changing. Whatever we're agreeing to today may need to change with what the state brings forward for us. And I appreciate all the hard work that everyone has put in on this, but again, it may be for naught. I think that everyone was taken into consideration, especially the task force put together with teachers and parents and administration. I feel like everyone was represented and you did the best job with what was in front of you at that time. It is not perfect, nor will education for the next few months be perfect. But then again, was it ever perfect? I mean, we're doing the best we can with what we have, and we appreciate everyone's time and efforts. And we would appreciate anything, that parents would like to offer, but need to remember that our hands are tied in some cases. And again, we did the best that we could with what we were given and the guidelines that we were given. And thank you to everyone that participated in that.
Thank you, Sue. A lot of people really have put a lot of time and energy in this.
Thanks.
It shows.
Thanks, Jeff. So could we move forward?
Motion to adopt school recovery, district recovery plan for the
Second.
reopening of schools.
Motion been made and seconded.
Who was the motion by? I'm sorry.
Andrew made
Andrew
the
and
motion,
Sue.
and Sue seconded.
Within the next day or so, this will go to the county office. The county office is still waiting on an approval checklist. Sorry, I should never use the word approval, with a certification of compliance checklist. I'm hoping that they can give that to us so that we can better make sure that this meets all of their needs. I will reach out to the Department of Ed today, though, to see if that's available. And then we'll work hard through the rest of the day to make sure that that's ready to go for submission. The next,
We need a roll call?
oh, sorry.
Need a roll call. Okay, roll call, starting with Chad,
Yes.
Roseanne,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Sue,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and Jerry.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Next.
Thank you, everybody.
Chad, could I just ask to make sure that no one's in the waiting room, that we've got everybody in who wants to get in?
No one's waiting.
All right, thank you. Item C, sorry, first reading of policy changes. You were sent those policies. They cover 1648 Restart and Recovery Plan up through 9150 community and school visitors. The most interesting aspect of 1648, the Restart and Recovery Plan, is you will note that this supersedes other district policies and is only in effect for the duration of the current COVID-19 pandemic. Approval of that particular policy covers all of the mandated information that we are required. Some of the other policies just pick up small details that would have already been enrobed in another policy. 5310 Health Screening Services has then some specific language about students and staff presenting with COVID-19, and then how to deal with chronic health conditions. A notable example of that would be if students currently receive nebulizer treatments at school. This is an aerolization of the medication. It is not recommended that this occur at school during the time of the pandemic. I have discussed this with the nurses, and they will be reaching out to any parents that would fall under that. If there is an emergency situation, obviously that takes precedent and they'll have to do it. But for routine sort of maintenance or chronic condition, under advice of our school physician and some other medical personnel, that's an example of something that under the health services and screenings is changed during the time of the pandemic. And then it just goes through the basic immunizations, maintenance, repair, and then school visitors has a situation for dealing with special concerns for contagion prevention. So they're very COVID-19 specific. This is only a first reading, so certainly if you have any questions now or if you have questions in the future, but this is just mandatory information as advised by the state, the Department of Health, or Strauss Esme, our policy writers.
We need a motion to approve, right,
Motion
Jerry?
for approval?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made
I
and
mean-
seconded. Any questions?
I have a question actually on policy 1648, the restart and recovery plan.
Yes.
And some of it might go out of the total guidelines of the recovery plan, but one of them, I want to focus on 1A, which regards with transportation again. We've had multiple problems with Holcomb in the past, and how are they going to handle driver shortages now? Have they given any plan from their perspective?
We've been in communication with Holcomb multiple different times and ways. At present, they've been very attentive to getting back to our questions and concerns. But we clearly have a history, and unfortunately, I don't know of another solution to help into the future. This is we are limited in what we can offer. I imagine they will experience some bus driver shortages, and that may mean substitutes. I can't guarantee anything with an outside contractor. Mr. Campbell, is there anything that you want to offer with regard to that? I mean, Scott's been in conversation with Holcomb. They understand the situation that every school district is facing during this time. Unfortunately, I'm going to steal one of Mr. Michael's statements. We are going to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Unfortunately, I don't have a guarantee that I can give you, Mr. Chepkowski. I am absolutely aware of your concerns. I can't argue your concerns, but I don't have a solution currently to your concern.
No, I guess my concern is, what if they don't have enough bus drivers to run the actual routes? And what do we have a plan in place for that situation if it occurs?
I don't have a plan in place for that. I myself don't have a CDL license.
No, I'm not expecting that, but I mean, is there any way we can contact, let's say, East Greenwich and ask them if we could leverage them on an emergency case, the district, because they have their own buses, or another school district that has buses?
Well, Holcomb Holcomb is in East Greenwich and Kingsway. So
they do have buses at the high school, or South Harrison. They have a big bus depot. One of the school
South
districts
Harrison uses Kingsway and Holcomb.
Yeah. Okay, Kingsway
Well,
then.
Andrew, we're going to have to continue to explore it. I recognize your concern. There are going to most likely, especially with the typical age of bus drivers, that is going to be an issue. And certainly we want the bus driver to stay home if he is ill as well, because we don't want him around the children. But a partnership with another district is also going to be a challenge, because they're not going to want our students on their buses to cross-contaminate it that way. And so that's also going to be a challenge.
Okay, just something that maybe we can reach out. They might say no, but sometimes you have to extend
Andrew,
the out.
I think a lot of the problem is with that is right before the virus hit, Holcomb seemed to have alleviated a lot of the issues and concerns that we were having. And unfortunately, with this lockout since mid-March, you don't really know if we're back at ground zero with them.
100%.
And if we may be going through what we went through previously with them again. And I'll even let you know, I even asked if there's any way we can come out and rebid, and I was told that we could not.
Okay.
So
thank you for that, Jerry.
It is a concern, and
okay.
Hopefully it all works out. Hopefully we're back to normal.
And I have the same concern for Source for Teachers, or whatever they're called now, when it comes to substitute educators. Have we heard from them what their plan is for all this? And how do we handle situations where somebody is seriously ill and we need a long-term sub situation? Have they, or even short-term, where somebody is going to be off? Like, how do we do that coverage? And do they feel they're going to have enough people? If we're on a virtual day, let's say it's a Wednesday, I guess we wouldn't need a substitute that day, or would there be class sharing? How are we gonna?
Andrew.
I'm sorry.
We have a motion on,
Well, we're on questions, Jerry.
you're questioning anything with the.
It's on board. Yes, it's on board policy, restart and recovery plan.
Yeah, these are all good questions that the parents want answers to as well.
So this does pertain to the current policies that are presented in front of the board. It's an extension. The policies are an extension of the restart and recovery plan that we voted before. So these all relate to it. And I was reading quite a number of pages, and I'm trying to, and also issues that were communicated to me from other residents within the district and concerns that they had. I feel sometimes these questions need to be vocalized in public. And
Well, I can tell you that I spent time on the phone yesterday with our representative from EES, which is, I think, the name Source for Teachers is going by now, Frontline EES. I honestly have to ask my secretary sometimes what name I should use. We are looking to get, in the past, we've used one floating sub for the district. We've requested 2 floating subs so that I can minimize the amount of people in the building. He felt that he could provide that. And we also talked about what the plan would be for short and longer term, in the event that we need that, for an extended health concern or isolation or quarantine. He did suggest he felt that he would be able to provide that. And I think given the circumstance with a lot of students graduating and then joining Source for Teacher, not getting a job to start the school year and joining Source for Teacher, I do think that they may have the availability. It's honestly the ability to limit it to just a few for Greenwich Township so that we have greater control over the amount of people that we have coming in. So that's part of the plan for how we're going to address that. We did also talk about the requirement of how were they going to be screening and preparing the staff to make sure that before they report to work in our district that they are in fact health screened and healthy to report to work. I did discuss with our nurses yesterday that if we have substitutes in the building, they should report first to the nurse for visual screening and a temperature check as the nurse feels appropriate, so that as visitors in our district, they will be providing or requiring PPE for all substitutes. So those are as many of the answers I think that I can offer you at this point in time about that.
Okay, thank you. Continuing on with the policy 1648, section 2A, we talk about employees screening the children or students as they come in. And I just want to make sure that the first 3 days, I know we had spoken about this, is going to cover the training because we're going to be altering, hopefully the board will agree with me when altering appropriately the calendar so they get appropriate training to identify it, much like, hazardous, like bloodborne pathogen training that they have and stuff like that. Okay, all right, great, thank you. I just wanted that to be said.
I even asked the nurses to try and come up with a cheat sheet that we could laminate, sort of top 8 things to look for, the fast 5, whatever the nurses in their medical opinion thought were right and appropriate.
Great.
Good idea.
I have 2 more questions related to this policy, and one has to do with contact tracing, the other one has to do with wearing masks. If we have staff or students that refuse to wear masks at any time, what is, I see a lot of times in the policy saying it's strongly encouraged, but what recourse do we have? Now, I know for visitors we can deny entry, but we're legally obligated to educate these students. So how do we handle situations where someone wants to have their student in the school, but they're refusing to follow the guidelines set forth by our district? And the same thing with contact tracing. If they refuse to do contact tracing, how are we handling that? It seemed a little nebulous. I was just seeing if you had any clarification on that within the various policies.
Well, I'm not sure I understand. Well, let me address the question with masks. all staff are required as part of their job to wear the mask, so that, I mean, that would be a personnel issue that we would address individually with the specific employee. And to be honest, I'm not concerned. I think that they are all actually going to be very supportive of that. We are also providing optionally the additional the face screens. We've ordered them. They can't wear them in lieu of the face mask, but I imagine we'll have some staff who may want to wear both. And certainly if we had students who, for medical reasons, it was deemed appropriate for them to use that as well, we could certainly make that swap out. As for students, it is going to be required on the bus. It's going to be essentially the price of admission on the bus in common areas and when they can't socially distance, and it will have to be addressed individually. Ultimately, with an all remote education, we can provide an education for someone if they refuse to wear the mask, all remote, if that becomes the requirement. We do need a little bit more guidance from the state on that, but that would appear at this time to be an option if we can't get compliance when it becomes a health and safety matter.
Great. I just want to make sure we have a plan in place for that, because I think it's really important. We, unintentional spread, we don't want to happen, and we want to make sure everybody is safe and as best you can within the situation that we have. And then if the unfortunate event where an educator or staff member gets sick and they exhaust their time off, there is the Extended Family Leave Medical Act that's in, but that expires at the end of the year. So if unfortunately this continues beyond that time, which if I was a betting man, it probably is, what are we going to do to address cases where that law has sunsetted, nothing new has come in? Are we going to just adopt a policy to extend forward on December of, or are we going to continue? Is it just go back to default where staff and educators have to use their sick time?
Well, to be honest, that wouldn't be my decision. That would be up to the board, as it would be a change in policy. Because we have so much time between now and then, and we don't know what the situation looks like or what it could look like when that sunsets, I wouldn't even feel comfortable trying to advise the board on what that policy should be without some of that data and information at our fingertips in order to inform the decision.
Okay, thank you. That concludes for my policy questions for that. I yield my time back. Thank you, Jerry, for letting me speak.
Any other questions from board members? Nope. All right, we're gonna have a roll call for approval of policies as presented for the first reading. Roll call, Roseanne.
Yes.
Dwayne.
I'm sorry, I was trying to talk, I was muted.
Okay. Sue.
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Chad.
Yes.
Jerry. Okay, motion carries 6-0.
The final item I would like the board to consider is recommend approval to adopt the attached changes for the District 2020-2021 school calendar. It is attached. Essentially, the main change on here is the movement of the October and November professional development days to September 2nd and 3rd. Originally, they were going to be student days. I would like the board to approve this so that we have 3 full days of professional development and preparation for the school year. This really will not be designated as classroom setup time beyond the most minimal essential aspect of that, because frankly, there can't be that much set up in the classrooms. It's the desks, it's the teacher desks, but hard and soft surfaces need to be cleaned and available for ready cleaning every night, and sterilization and the misting, and soft surfaces have to be at a bare minimum because of the challenges they pose when cleaning. You will notice on that first month, just so that you could get a sense of it, the configuration of days. Typically, maroon will be Monday and Thursday. Gold will be Tuesday and Friday. It will be all remote on Wednesday. That very first week, though, because we're missing the Monday, it's a 4-day week. Gold will continue on their typical days, Tuesday and Friday, and we will see Maroon team on Wednesday and Thursday. We shifted their Monday day to Wednesday, and that's why I included that there so that you could, in fact, see that. Once we get the certification of compliance from the county office, we would provide parents with at least the first marking period's worth of maroon and gold for their planning purposes so that they would know what that would look like. They would have an easy reference at home.
Motion to adopt the new calendar.
Second.
Who was that first? Is that first by Andrew or Chad?
By me.
Okay. Andrew, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Any further questions?
Thank you for building in the extra time to train our staff, Dr. Foley. Thank you.
Certainly, Mr. Chapkas.
Roll call. Dwayne.
Yes.
Sue.
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Chad.
Yes.
Roseanne.
Yes.
And Jerry.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. This is the time when anyone from the public who wishes to speak to the board may do so. Please state your name, address, and phone number. The board will hear your concerns. The board may or may not take action at this time. You will be notified either at this meeting, by letter, or telephone of any action the board does take. In accordance with board policy and procedures, speakers are not permitted to publicly speak of a personal issue involving school personnel or against any person connected to the school system. Any such concern should be presented to the school or district level administration so that proper response may be given.
Melina Spatel has a question.
Hello, everyone. I have two questions. First is, my name is Melina Spitali, 368 Sweetsboro Road, phone number 534-4038. My first one is similar to what Mr. Kent asked about the all remote learning. Could you explain a little more about the plan that has been devised for the students if their parents do choose the full remote learning method for this year? Specifically, will you still be utilizing packets, or will there be more opportunities on technology and for online live teaching for the students?
Great question, and I'm sure it encapsulates what a lot of people want to know, so thank you for asking that. There may be times when it's right and appropriate for a particular packet, but we will be expecting the all remote to be technology based. Students who are in the all technology will also receive a laptop for use at home. We have built into the teacher schedules times when they will be required to be at their computers and providing either asynchronous or synchronous learning. So some days at Broad Street, they may have a teacher assigned, let's say K-2. It's going to look a little different in K-2, 3 to 5, and 6 through 8 based on the age of the children. In K-2, they may be assigned, say, an ELA teacher and a math teacher. And the ELA teacher will provide the same number of hours of instruction that an in-person student would get. Now, it might not be at the same times. It's not going to be simply a rebroadcast of the class as it occurred, but it will be limited to, let's say there are 3 students who are kindergarten who have chosen, with their families, have chosen all remote. They will be scheduled together with that teacher, and there will be an opportunity for live instruction, for the assignment of work, for the submission of work electronically, and an opportunity even identified for when parents, if you feel the need to contact and reach out to the teacher, just as, you know, if your child were coming in person, when the teacher would be available and would be expected to be online to be available to your questions. The state required that we put deadlines in for the request to do all remote learning. We want to encourage parents to pick the situation that is best for their children, but we also need to try and have some consistency of, if you're going to go remote, we'll anticipate that you're going to stay all remote that first marking period. And those are the framework that we're looking at. Obviously, if there needed to be a decision on a case-by-case basis of, just a significant change in a family circumstance where we needed to reevaluate that, we certainly would. Ms. Patel, did that answer all of your question? Or
Thank
give
you. Thank
Okay.
you. Yes, that did. I have one more question, an important question. Has an agreement or settlement been reached for a new contract with your teachers and staff? If not, I can imagine that this may be very difficult entering a new school year during a pandemic without a contract. Thank you.
Sure. The short answer is no. Although I believe I can say that I do know as early as, or as recently as yesterday, communication was made by all parties, or representatives from all parties.
Okay, thank you.
We have Liz Koponik that has a question.
I just have two questions and they're short. So my first question was, are the students able to walk to school who are within walking distance, and can parents take them to school?
Absolutely. You won't be allowed in the building, but you can certainly deliver to the building. Each building will have a designated parent drop-off walker entrance where the students will be greeted by staff for their screenings and then escorted to their classrooms.
Okay, and I just have one other question, which is, I wasn't clear on the length of the day. I heard something about noon, but what is the length of the normal day that they're going to be in school?
Well, I can't give you exact times because we still have some work figuring out the bus routes, how long it's going to take, how long it takes to get the kids in through screening, and then to get them back on the bus. I can give you approximates. It's going to be an in-person learning experience of approximately 4.5 hours. They will start similar to the times that kids approach or arrived at Broad Street or arrived at New Quincy. But I would be remiss if I said it's going to start exactly at 7:55 or 8:15 because some of those things we're still working out.
Okay, that's understandable. All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
My name is Nyla Tanzak. I'm at 200 Ashton Drive in Gibbstown, New Jersey.
What's your question?
Why are students, say, for example, it's group A? Why is group A not going 2 days in a row, then Wednesday, and then group B going 2 days in a row? Why the breakup and mixture?
Sure, there were two main reasons for that. Students, if you were, let's just say you were picked for group A, that we felt that actually had a greater educational effect because you would be in Monday and Tuesday, and teachers would be available to you Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday remotely for questions and for support. But if you were in the Thursday, Friday group, you would get your instruction, and then you'd have the sort of, I don't want to say unnatural, but that break of the weekend where you've been away from your studies for 2 days, now you pick it back up on Monday, and it's all remote. So it really is a full week with a bulk of that week being away from the teacher and a significant interruption of that weekend in being able to reach out for something that you might be uncertain about a new math concept. Additionally, for Monday and Tuesday students, they would be taking home their grab-and-go food and being able to eat it Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But if you were in the Thursday, Friday group, you were taking food home that was designated for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And so you could have a fresh-made sandwich that was prepared for you on a Friday, but it would be 5 full days before you were eating it. And we weren't really comfortable with that. So those were the reasons why we chose Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday. It also provided that as soon as, you saw a teacher every third day so that anything that you might be struggling with, there wasn't a longer gap. And it also created a sort of line in the sand of you knew you were going to see your teacher. You didn't push off doing all of that work for a long period of time. You got an assignment on Monday, you worked on it, you had a teacher to reach out to, and then you were back in the building on Thursday. We did discuss the AB. We discussed a lot of them. 3 cohorts, A, B, and C. We discussed split schedules. We looked at a lot of them, and honestly, while I don't think any one of those was perfect, we felt it met more of the needs.
So while kids are, say, group A is at school learning, will group B be able to watch live at home?
No, they will not be able to watch live, but they will have access to the teacher both in the AM and in the PM for either live contact with the teacher or to be able to send and receive response to emails or to log in and do a Zoom meeting. So even when they're away from the teacher that way.
Okay, and then I have another question. So with the buses, last year, even before COVID, it took months for your bus routine to get on track. My student wasn't going into school, getting in there until about 9:45, almost after 8:45, almost after at times. How is this going to be any different, if not double the time that it's going to take the students to get into school, and not even counting the new bus drivers, or if they have to get replacements or whatever the case may be? How is this going to be helpful? How are our students going to get to school at a certain time when it couldn't have been done before? It took over 2 months for our schedule to get in line.
Well, trust me, no one felt the pain of those bus runs more than I did. I'm
sure the parents did as well. We all felt that pain.
I know, trust me, I 100% understand and sympathize. There will be half as many kids on the bus, so we do think from that respect, it will speed that portion of the bus run up. The length of the students disembarking won't necessarily increase. The increase in time will be the length of time it takes us to screen the children to get into the school. There will be an additional about 5 minutes for our custodial maintenance staff to step on and run the misters, but that they are able to be touch safe within 5 minutes. We've been on regular communication with Holcomb. I 100% believe he understands what our expectations are. As I've said before, it is not a great situation that we've had with Holcomb in the past, and we're going to have regular continued meetings with him. We will have a bus driver meeting before the start of school, whether that's in person or remote, in order to ensure safety. Mr. Campbell will certainly be reaching out to Holcomb with great regularity, and we have a transportation secretary. So I'd love to tell you that I feel 100% comfortable it's all going to be perfect, but I don't know what's going to happen if we have a bus driver sick and we get a substitute. There's the possibility that there'll be a delay.
Is Dr. Foley, sorry to step on public comment, but are we going to publicize the number that he handed out last year? Is that still going to be valid for parents to call Holcomb if they have specific issues beyond what we can address?
You know, as far as I know, that number is still valid, but we'll have our transportation secretary reach out and confirm that. And if it's not still the same number, we'll get a new number and we'll make sure it's publicized to the public.
All right, thank you.
Certainly.
Ms. McConnell has a question.
Go ahead,
Hi,
Mrs. McConnell.
question for, hello, Patricia McConnell, 128 Carson Avenue. I had a question more for the remote learning. There's a lot of parents that work during the day, or they're a one-parent household. Are we able to not log in till the evening, or are these kids going to have to log in during a certain hour?
Well, see, and
even
that's
for the
why
kids that are on remote 3 days, I just don't see how they're able to do that.
that's one of the reasons why we want to keep it flexible enough, because not every family has the same situation. If you'll remember, Mrs. Vernacchio asked the question about, will attendance be that all the kids logged in at the same time?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes when we put a policy that's one size fits all, the type of situation you're talking about comes up. So it would not be my inclination to say you must log in at 9 a.m. If, you know, if the teacher can provide the work and your child is, frankly, we had a few students who
Doing
it
all-
worked better in the afternoon, then we need to make sure that that works for you as well, to the extent practicable. Now, I will say, we do also need to make sure the teachers get an appropriate time of rest in the evening. They can't be expected to be
Absolutely, I understand that.
Okay, I just want to put that out there. They went above and beyond answering emails at all hours.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure they know they don't have to do that, that it's okay to spend time with their families.
I understand that their time is 8 to whatever, 4. But I guess my question is, say my kid is all remote, just an example, all remote. We're doing the work Monday, Tuesday evening. We have a question, I guess we can ask them Wednesday morning. That's fine. Yep. As long as we're able to access whatever video or virtual is in the evening. As I obviously can't put that on my mother or.
No, once you put a video out there, it's just kind of waiting for the students. If somebody emails you a cute, or texts you a cute link of, I'm a sucker for cats on the internet. You can watch it whenever you want, and that would be available to students as well.
Great to know. And then it's our responsibility as parents and students to make sure the work is submitted.
Yes, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Debbie Fizzler has a question.
That was me. Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Debbie?
Debbie, you're on mute if you're trying to ask a question.
Sorry, I just unmuted. I forgot.
That's okay.
Debbie Fizzler, 105 Casperson Street. I got a couple questions. One is, I'm sure some of the people in town don't have access to the internet. Are you doing anything to address that?
Mr. Gorelli is looking into a variety of ways to be able to do that. We've had some partnerships with Comcast, who is extending, free services. There are other pay subscriptions, MiFi instead of Wi-Fi. We are looking to address that. I think I think Mr. Gorelli, he already had me approve a survey that he was sending out to our public, our parents, for anyone who was having issues with that, and that will help him guide to be able to work directly with those families.
Okay, because I know Philadelphia had them kind of outcomes too. So, and my second question is a little concerned with the screening. It seems like you're putting an awful lot on the nurses when it comes down to determining between cold, flu, or COVID. And what would be the I guess retribution? I don't know what word to use, but what if they decided, okay, it's just a cold, send them back to the room, and then the child winds up being positive? What would be the feedback to the nurses? And, is there any kind of, are they going to be in the clear? I wouldn't want them, parents coming back and maybe trying to sue or, whatever.
No, I understand your question, and I'm sure our nurses have thought about that. I did have an extensive call with them yesterday, and I'm sure every school district wants to be able to say it, but we have two of the best nurses anywhere, and I feel very comfortable with their medical expertise. I would imagine when in doubt, they're going to err on the side of caution for those very reasons that you pointed out. But they also get to know our students very well. They communicate with the families very regularly. So if they feel comfortable that it is in fact allergies and not COVID-19, if the student has no other symptoms, I think for the most part, they're going to feel comfortable sending the child back to class. Beyond that, I'm not really sure. We haven't had any legal cases for me to sort of research on what their responsibility would be. But I believe they would be, if they are acting in good faith in the service of their job, I think that they have very little legal retribution to fear, and certainly that they're working in service of the district.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question. It's actually, it's kind of a question. Kirsten, 57 North Rapano Ave, Gibbstown, New Jersey. These kids are going to be highly excited to get back into the classroom and to be around their, you know, friends that they haven't been able to for 3 months, the ending of last year. So I understand everyone being concerned and, you know, having them wear masks and taking the precautions. However, kids are still going to be kids. They're still going to want to come up and hug their friends, high five their friends, and be excited to just be with each other again, even if it's for 4.5 hours of the day that they are able to be there. How is that going to be handled when these kids aren't abiding by the rules that are set in stone for this school year?
Well, I think there's going to have to be a lot of education. Even before the kids get back to school, we're going to have to rely very heavily on the parents, on really helping to prepare the students for what's going to be expected of them. When the kids come in, their teachers, their classroom teachers are really going to have to prepare what the expectations are and why, you know, we wash our hands and why we have to keep socially distant. I think there's a distinct difference between a student in his excitement who runs over to another student and is very excited, but when corrected, you know, follows the teacher's directions, and a student who is willfully ignoring the policies and procedures in place. And I think teachers will be able to recognize that when they see the children, and I think also we're going to have to take disciplinary measures if we have any students who just repeatedly and willfully will not follow the direction. Like the children are going to have to wear their masks on the bus. They can't just flop in their seats and take their masks off and routinely do that when they've been instructed not to, and think they're going to be able to continue to do that in the future. And there will have to be repercussions for the willful and continued disobedience. But you're 100% right. Adults, if we haven't seen each other in a while, get excited to see each other. And we're going to have to be cognizant of that, and we're going to have to set structures in place that help limit those behaviors as much as possible.
I understand, you know, the discipline for kids deliberately taking their masks off, but you also have kids that are going to do it because it's just kids being kids, kids not realizing what they're doing at the same time and wanting to talk but not being able to be heard through a mask to their friends or to their, you know, classmates. So I feel that you're going to be disciplining kids for just being kids when they're not doing it purposely.
Well, we're going to have to make those decisions based on the behaviors as we see them. I do think our teachers are going to be really aware, especially at the different age groups. We will be providing instruction and expectations to teachers about building in mask-free times so that we can, you know, help spell children throughout the day. That it's not 100% mask for the 4.5 hours, but when we can be socially distant, when we have a protective barrier, that we can do that. But like many other things, you know, even if a student in a traditional classroom setting is excited to see his children and he's been told to sit in a seat, he does need to follow the directions of the teacher. And we're just going to have to balance the public safety of all students in the classroom and, yes, the individual behaviors of kids being kids.
Ashley Yandick has a question.
Hello.
Ashley?
Sorry. 33 Brant Avenue, Gibbstown. I have two questions. Being someone who also works in schools, you know, everybody's schedule is going to be a little bit different. Are we going to be able to request a certain cohort if there is a day that may be easier on parents with finding childcare? And my other question is, as far as siblings, are you going to do your best to keep them in the same cohort?
Currently, all siblings are kept together. We purposely built the schedule that way. If for some reason you received a schedule and your children were not both in the same cohort, it was a mistake and we will rectify it. We would certainly look to see if we would be able to switch a cohort. Unfortunately, because of so many constraints that we utilized in setting the cohorts up to balance the buses, balance classrooms, ensure that we were, meeting special ed needs. I can't guarantee that necessarily we would be able to do that. If we were able to, we would, but it would not be a guarantee.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
I'm sorry. As my son's going into kindergarten, so this is all new to me. When will we be finding out? Because you said if this was on your schedule, then that that was a mistake. So when will elementary be notified as
Sure. We are required under the new guidelines from the state that this plan has to be released to the public a month before school starts. Because the board just reapproved a new calendar, that would mean no later than August 7th, we will publicize this. It's why I'm also hesitant about doing a separate town meeting to discuss this until I get that certification from the county, which is why I want to get this to the county tomorrow so that I will have it well in advance of the 7th and I can make myself available to answer all those questions and also publicize it so that everybody who has questions has an opportunity to ask them. I would say the very latest would be August 7th. If we get that indication from the state sooner than that, we're going to move forward sooner than that.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Any other questions?
It's me, Nyla Tanzak again. I have a question. What made the decision? How did you base the decision on making the schools half day and removing the preschool as well? 2 questions.
Sure. The preschool was problematic because of the social distancing and the masks with the children. We did not feel that we could ensure with the population that we had that we would be able to remain socially distant or have students wear masks. That was an incredibly difficult decision, and I really wanted anything not to have to make that decision. Even when it looked like that was going to have to be the decision, I still set people back and I said, well, see if you can figure anything out. Go back and read it, but I'm not ready to make that decision yet. And your second, the why it's a hybrid day of remote instruction in the afternoon and in person in the morning. Among the guidelines with serving breakfast and lunch were the social distancing and the sanitization in cafeterias or classrooms before and after eating, how the students had to face and how far they had to be spread apart, plus supervision of those students during that time. And we just did not feel that we could safely accomplish that.
Even if the kids are eating lunch in class?
Well, because now we need somebody to be in the classroom watching them. And during that time, whether that was an aide or a classroom teacher, we don't have enough. Typically, when they're in a cafeteria, it's 3 or 4 adults in that vicinity. Additionally, especially with our smallest children, the amount of hands-on contact they need to open my milk, and my mom sent the plastic container with my sandwich in it, but I can't get it open. We did not feel we could meet the state minimum standards.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. My name's Sarah Muller. I live at 12 East Broad Street. I know we have buses. Why can't we use the Gibbstown buses instead of subcontracting buses from Holcomb?
Well, Mr. Campbell can speak to you about actually when we sold the buses and how long it's been since we actually had buses.
We don't have our own buses, and we haven't had our own buses for approximately 8 to 10 years. So everything that we do related to transportation is contracted out.
All right, well, that makes no sense when we had our own buses.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said that makes no sense when we had our own buses. I don't know. Just a question, that's all. I know we had our own buses.
She said she knows we had our own buses.
We used to 8 to 10 years ago. Yeah. The board at the time made the decision to privatize their busing.
That just makes no sense. All right, thanks.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Hi, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Dan?
Oh, yes, Dan Rossetti, 337 North Omer Avenue. That's the only question I have is that, is there a choice for parents that want to just do 100% remote learning?
There is a choice for that, and that will be outlined in the plan. Well, let me just make sure you want 100, you're asking with relative to 100% remote learning through classroom teachers at Gibbstown as opposed to homeschooling, correct, Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
yes, we will be offering that. There will be a very minimal form in order to request that. We would ask families stay with enrollment in the all remote program through the whole first marking period, but it will provide with, I'm going to call it sort of like a homeroom teacher, teachers responsible for certain content areas for that student. And it will also provide contact time between that teacher and that student via the internet with the K-12, or I'm sorry, K-8 laptops initiative. So every
Okay.
student, even an all remote student, will get a laptop. Sorry, we're
Okay.
just plugging in my laptop. It's dying. We're just getting an extension.
How do we get information on that? Will that be sent out to us, or we can go to a website to see it?
I'm coming. Unmute yourself, mister. Hi, sorry, my laptop just died. They're plugging me in, so it'll take me a minute to get back. That will be provided in the plan. It will be out on our website. When we schedule the, town hall meeting, the, remote ask the superintendent question meetings, I can certainly go over that. You're more than welcome to also just call me. I would say that that information will most likely not be provided until August 7th, unless the Department of Ed gets our certificate of compliance to us sooner than that. They've just really discouraged us from releasing the plan in the draft form until we have that.
All right, thank you so much.
Certainly. I'm going to try and go back to my computer and see if it's working. If you have a question, I can hear it, and then I'll come back and answer it.
Autumn, did you have a question?
Hi, yes. I'm Autumn Clement. I live at 845 Mullen Avenue in Gibbstown. I have a 5th grader that's transitioning, I'm sorry, I'm working, transitioning this year to 6th grade. And in the past, they had a tour of Nahonsi prior to starting. Will that be taking place over the summer? These kids do have a lot of anxiety about returning to school, and I feel like it would be really beneficial to them to comfort them and give them a little bit of confidence before they go to Nahonsi. It's such a build up to them, that they're going to the big school. That's how it's always referred to. So now these kids are, wondering, oh, how am I going to navigate around? They don't know anything about it. So.
Well, right now we're actually looking at doing video presentations, sort of similar to our virtual graduation, which for both the parents of kindergartners and the kindergartners themselves, certainly, and for our incoming 6th grade class. We do have concerns with bringing in, obviously, large groups of kids and a rotating schedule. We're not sure how convenient that will be for families. Certainly, if we still had questions, we could talk, if our students still had questions or concerns after they had an opportunity to sort of see the day in a life of a 6th grader and what's going to be expected of them, then, we could look at perhaps a more individualized approach. So
I would like to make a suggestion. You're preparing for them to return to school. They are going to be in a cohort going to school 2 times a week. So in planning over the summer, they should be able to tour in their cohort with their masks. These are 6th graders. They're capable of wearing masks for a tour. It would just build their confidence in navigating to going to the school. I mean, if they're going to go to school in September 2 days a week, there's no reason that they shouldn't be able to be in that cohort and go to school for a tour, a 15-minute tour.
I think it's certainly something that I can examine and see if we can't in fact work with.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. Hold on just a second. Hey, Mike, can you try and get my computer up and running? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Kent.
Do we have
Sorry,
any other
I'm still on
questions?
Mr. Michaels.
Any other questions?
Hello.
Megan?
Hi, Megan Myers, 138 Patterson Ave, Gibbstown. Just to kind of speak off of what Autumn just brought up about, you know, determining what is safe and what is unsafe. It's just, I feel like, and I don't know if this question came up prior to making the determination as to whether or not this board meeting was to be remote or to be held in person. So I'm just assuming that obviously there was a conversation and it was determined that it was not safe to have the meeting in person. Is that true or is that not true?
Well, it's not so much that it's an issue for having the amount of people on the board in the same room, it's the public and being able to socially distance the public coming into a meeting. At this point in time, we haven't come up with a solution that works well in person where we can have a large enough venue, not knowing on any given board meeting how many people might be available. And that's honestly the situation with an indoor collection or assemblage of people.
Okay. And with that being said, you know, I think that it may be easy for me to say this, and I think that one of the most important things, and just to capture like the social aspect and all of this, meaning like from a psychological, like a social impact on kids and staff. You know, it's easy for parents to pass judgment, and I'm a parent myself and I have a lot of opinions. But I think, you know, with Autumn mentioning like bringing the kids into school to have their tour, you know, these kids already are experiencing anxieties. They're uncertain about what to expect when they return back to school. They're facing fears of whether they're going to get the virus or not, as well as the teachers. I think that I understand, you know, for a teacher, I'm assuming they're facing the same fears. And I think that, you know, when all of this is said and done, just to provide as much support to everyone, like we kind of all have to just band together, but everybody's, you know, questions and everybody's apprehensions, like they all should be validated in one way or the other. And I know as a board, it's tough to make decisions. And I'm sure like as the superintendent, it's extremely hard to make decisions. But, you know, to try to make this as normal as possible for everyone, I would hope that that's on like the forefront of everybody when making these tough decisions. Like we have to make this as normal as possible with as much support as we can.
I think that's a good motto for us to keep in mind as we continue to make decisions. And I work with a really good board. I don't know if you can tell from all the questions they ask and the comments and the consideration they give to all of this, but I can honestly say that they have always given me the marching orders of try and do what's best for our students, our staff, our families. I genuinely do believe they've tried to make the best decisions that they can.
Tiffany Bishop, did you have something?
Hi, yes. My name's Tiffany Bishop, 260 Crescent Avenue. I have a question. If our student goes to school and absolutely just cannot handle the mask and things like that, and we decide to do remote learning instead, is that going to be an option, or do we have to choose, like they go to school or they have to just stay home remote learning?
Well, Mrs. Bishop, for continuity of the learning and for teacher planning, it would be best that we have as many students and families make those decisions prior to the start of the school year. But I will tell you, I'm rarely a 100% person. If we have a family approach us and that there have been a change in family circumstances, or there is a significant reason why this change should be made in the student's best interest, we're absolutely going to consider that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just because I know my son really wants to go, but we have issues with the mask and things like that. So I just wasn't sure if I needed to just, keep him at home or just give him a chance to see what he can do. And if he can't do it, then, obviously I'm not gonna want to force him to do it. And I would rather keep him home and keep him safe and keep everyone else safe.
I understand, and I know we're asking parents to make some really hard decisions too. I don't want to encourage sort of revolving doors back and forth, because that's really hard on the students' educational continuity and going to be hard on the teachers and their planning. But absolutely, if we reached a point with a student where it was clearly not working, we'd have to consider it.
Okay. I did have another question. Not based. Do you guys have any updates on the yearbooks?
I just looked at Mr. Gorelli and he said no.
No.
No, I'm sorry. And I think he probably is more excited to send out information about yearbooks than you guys are waiting to get it. But as soon as we know, you all will know.
Okay. No, that's all I had. Thank you.
Certainly.
Stephanie Smith, she has a question.
Yeah, hi, sorry. It's more of just a comment. I work for the library right in front of Nahansi, so I just wanted to offer our services in any way that we can, and, make it easy for the teachers. So I just wanted to let you guys know that, we're here if you need anything.
And they have been wonderful, and thank you, Stephanie. I know I've already been in communication with our English teachers about the offer of the electronic resources that you can provide our students and library cards. So
great.
We will work with you as we always have, because you've always been so good to us.
Ashley Rostelli.
Okay.
Hi, Ashley Restelli, 142 Giamarino Avenue. I just have one question. My daughter has an IEP, and I know in the IEP it asks for her to take a lot of breaks. Would you still be able to implement that safely for her? Like, she has no problem wearing a mask.
Well, what grade is your daughter in, Mrs. Rostelli?
She's going into 3rd.
Okay, we already are building into the typical student schedule, and please don't give us more details than you would be comfortable with anyway in public, but depending upon whether the child's in a self-contained or in a push-in class environment, we are already giving the teachers a lot of flexibility in halfway through the English class, let's take the kids outside and have 10 or 15 minutes. Let's go down, if it's a rainy day, let's go down to the auditorium and do some mindfulness or some yoga or meditation that they're learning in PE. So if for some reason your daughter needed even more than what's built in, then yes, absolutely, we can work with the child study team to see how we can even either schedule that in or give her, some kind of way to access that break when she needs it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Certainly.
Jason Ray's next.
Okay.
Jason, you're cutting in and out. Could we try that again?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Jason Ray, 65 Chester Ave here in Gibbstown, 5990460. So I have 2 questions. One is, what about breakfast? How are they giving that out and where are they eating it?
They won't be eating breakfast in the buildings because of those cleaning and social distancing protocols. So when students get the grab and go, included in it will be prepackaged food items that the students will be able to take home, so that you'll get that day's lunch and the next morning's breakfast, and then any additional days that you're removed from school, breakfast and lunch.
Okay, the second question is, so my daughter will be now going into 3rd grade. and that is when they start to switch classes. So for, you know,
Teachers are going to be rotating, not the students.
okay, so they'll remain at the same desk. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I think over at Broad Street, the only time that they would be leaving in the room is for health and PE and TPE, which is a teacher-provided physical education. So essentially for health and PE that they would leave the room. I believe even specials are being scheduled into their current classroom.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have right now.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Questions?
I have a comment.
Go ahead. Is that Mr. Morris?
Yes, just a suggestion.
Certainly.
John Morris, 335 Carson Avenue. My daughter's going into 6th grade also. Just to carry on from what Autumn was saying, is it possible to maybe with volunteers accept an appointment to visit Nahonsi? Just something to think about if it's possible through like before school actually starts. That was all.
I will certainly consider it, and we'll probably have a similar conversation about kindergarten as well.
Okay, thank you.
Visiting the school appointments.
Melina's,
Sorry, we have other members of the administrative team here, and I was just clarifying that question.
That was just a suggestion I wanted to put out to the board. That was all. But thank you for the time.
Certainly, Ms. Morris, thank you.
Melina Spitelli.
Dad, can I talk to Jerry? Hey, Jerry, it's Dwayne. I'm at work. I have a work commitment here in about 10 minutes. I got to be excused from the meeting. I'm currently at work and I got another thing going on here. All right, Jerry, you hear me?
Jerry is nodding.
Absolutely. Dwayne, thank you.
All right, very productive. I appreciate the involvement here. Wow, I can't believe we had over 100 people on here. It's pretty cool. Again, I look forward to let's get this thing right and get it back open. I hate to leave you, but like I said, I am at work and I do have another work commitment here.
Thank you, Mr. Sarmiento.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Yep.
Okay. Melina Spitelli.
Yes, hi. Again, Melina Spitali, 368 Swedesboro Road. I just had another quick question. If parents do choose the hybrid model, since students will only be in school for 4.5 hours, 2 days a week, have you guys considered having the teachers only spend time in the classroom instructing LAL and math, especially for the younger elementary grades, since these are the major core subjects, and then have science and social studies be virtual? And also, I don't know if I heard correctly or not, if the special areas will be virtual or if students will be gathering into the different classrooms for special areas. Thank you.
Students at Broad Street will not be traveling for specials. They'll stay in their own classroom. Here at Nahonsi, they do have to travel for their elective just because there's much more diversity in the middle school schedule. And we already addressed that music will not be occurring at least for the first half of the school year. You also asked about, with specials, it was, remote instruction. Currently, the content will be all hybridized, some remote, some in person. ELA and math certainly are important. But we also don't want them to take on greater importance than our science and social studies. And that's why all of them will have an opportunity to meet, but the schedule is designed so that they have twice as much time in ELA and math in person during the day than they do for social studies and science.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
Yeah, hi, Jason Ray. I have one more question.
Go ahead, Mr. Ray.
Okay, so all this restart policy and everything that you're putting together, just out of curiosity, is this coming from, and you're using the guidance of the State Department of Education, the Road Back, the 104-page plan? Is that what this is coming
It's
from?
based on the minimum standards identified in that plan. There are also suggestions. There were suggestions from the Department of Health, from the attorneys, from our policy writers, from our school physicians. There have been a wide variety of people who and organizations who have reached out to us and provided help and support in trying to meet these guidelines.
Okay, yeah, I just kind of for myself and maybe for everybody else, if anybody had some downtime and wanted to read the 104 pages of what the state says for how to start this back up.
Well, the curious part about that is the requirements are only the first few pages. The rest is just discussion. So that there are other suggestions or considerations that they've included in there. But the minimum standards are what the Department of Education, when we submit it for compliance check, that's what they'll be looking for, that we meet those minimum standards outlined in that plan developed by the governor and the Department of Ed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ashley Yondick has a question again.
Hi, yes, I was just asking, is the preschool program altogether canceled or just the integrated one?
Just the integrated. We will still be offering the required preschool with disabilities program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Tina Grimes on 86 Casperson, 381-5610. My question was, is this going to be throughout the whole school year, or will we be phasing things out to maybe instead of the 4 hours, we do 8 hours and then eventually 5 days a week, or is this strictly the whole school year?
Oh, Mrs. Grimes, I entirely hope this is only the first marking period.
Okay.
I don't know where we'll be in November. I'm hoping that New Jersey will be in such a state that we can welcome all of our kids back 5 days a week. That's our goal.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hi, I just had another question. This is Tiffany Bishop, 260 Crescent Ave. I don't know if the school was going to offer any type of counseling to students who have anxiety or fear or anything that has to do with COVID or anything like that. Is the school going to offer any type of counseling to those students?
Well, we certainly already have some programs in place between our school psychologist and our guidance counselors and a school social worker. Last year, we started also providing we help coordinate, but it is not really through the district. Ascenda provides certified mental health care providers, and they came and provided healthcare services during the day for students whose parents had requested them. We've actually increased the amount of hours that Ascenda will be available to our students and their families.
Okay, and that information is available on the school's website?
It is available on the school's website. Typically, parents reach out through the guidance counselors so that, you know, again, we refer the information. We give you the information to Ascenda. So again, we keep it really very limited between the family and the mental health care provider.
Yeah, understood. Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
I actually had a question.
Okay.
This is Tara Stahl, 224 Carson Avenue. I was just curious if moving forward with these meetings, if there's a 10 a.m. start, if it could possibly be on a Saturday for those that do work, or if this was just an outside situation where it had to be held at 10 a.m.
Mr. Michael wants to answer that question.
Yeah, Tara, that's a good point. We just didn't come up with this time willy-nilly. We discussed an evening time, a 1:30 time, like the task force meets, and we come up with a 10 o'clock time. This isn't the first time we've met this early during the summer. We just took a gander that this would be a good time in the summer. It would give administration and Dr. Foley a chance to disseminate some of this and be another full working day. Going forward, if there are more of these meetings, I'm sure we'll discuss a time. Hopefully this is the last one that we have. But your point is well taken. And again, this is uncharted water for all of us, and we've made some things today that were we had to wing it as we went along and you know, give us credit for trying. I don't know if there's any good time to have things like this. We had 126 here today. I thank you all for taking time out of your day to come here. Some of us had to change work schedules. Some of us called from work, and this is tough on everybody. That being said, if we do have another meeting, I can assure you will not be on a Saturday, but we'll look at a time that benefits all going forward. That includes teachers, staff, administration, board, and of course, the parents of the students.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Jason Ray.
Yes, so I have a question about busing as far as, well, I mean, childcare, with the daycare, stuff like that, busing to the childcares, and also, you know, have the local daycares been brought into any kind of meetings, and is there a collaborative effort as far as, you know, the social distancing and stuff like that, the same kind of protocols you guys are? So, you know, if school's only half a day and sometimes you're gonna have to send their kids to daycare, you know, are we, you know, being reassured that we're going to get the same kind of safety at those places?
Well, to be honest, I can't really speak to the protocols that are either required or actually enacted at any of the daycare facilities that are outside of our jurisdiction. We have reached out to a variety of daycare in the surrounding area because we do have concerns for parents with providing daycare, but we unfortunately can't offer that here at the district, and that will be, you know, a requirement for parents to work with those local daycare. We're trying to put together a list of what is available in the area so that hopefully we can direct families to that. And we've actually even reached out to some outside companies to suggest that they might find it lucrative to put locations here in order to service our community. But beyond that, they are not under the jurisdiction of the school board, nor should they be. And I can't really speak to if they are, in fact, providing all of the safeguards that we would hope they are.
Sure, that's, I mean, I can understand, you know, they don't, you know, fall under the same, but all right, so how about the busing? Is there going to be any kind of busing provided to local daycares?
Well, we don't currently provide busing to outside daycares, so I don't see that would be changing. We would certainly continue any current programming that we have with SAC, depending upon what their situation is in September.
Okay, are they even open?
I don't believe they are at the moment.
Okay, yeah, I noticed the sign was down, so I didn't know if they were going to be around in September or not.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I'm sorry to say.
Okay, now one other question, as far as busing, what about if a child needs to be bused to a different residence in town here, you know, a different family member who's going to be accommodating, you know, these childcare services while the parents are at work? Like, will we be able to have that arranged?
In as much as it's been in the past. I'm going to repeat the question so Mr. Campbell can hear it, and then I'll ask him to answer. For families who need to bus a student to a different residence for childcare after school, what might be available?
Any busing that will take place will have to be on a consistent basis. We're not going to have to deviate. We're not going to deviate from what we originally planned, because that affects the amount of social distancing on a bus if we put extra kids on a bus. So where a kid is picked up, that's where will be dropped off.
Okay, I'm just trying to, you know, process in my head is probably the 100 other people that are on here, just trying to figure out how we're going to manage and plan our lives. You know, where our kids are going to go, you know, once the school day is done. It's extremely difficult.
That's understandable.
I guess that's all I have for right now.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
All right, let's not close the public portion.
Okay.
I would just like, before we adjourn, I would just like to reiterate again, thanking you for everybody for coming out, and if I can re-comment on what I said to Ms. Stahl, this was all due for us, and I'm sure we're going to make some corrections on the way. Any positive input, we're all welcome to hear. We get enough of the negative on social media. That being said, this time wasn't taken willy-nilly, and we're hoping to get at least a work day out of this. We got some vacations involved with some administrators, and we want to disseminate this information while it's fresh. I want to thank everybody that came out, teachers, staff, administration, fellow board members, and especially the parents. You all asked some really great questions, and Mr. Ray, I totally understand what everybody out there is going through, and the sad part is this will only change in another month. We're winging it every day, and just as you guys all out there, and it's tough. We wish we had more to give you. But we just hope this darn thing gets better. I just want to thank everybody again. And I do have one other thing I'd like to say. If any parent here has children that go to Paulsboro, or know of any parent that has children that go to Paulsboro, if they have any questions or concerns on Paulsboro back to school effort, please shoot me an email on my school address here so I can take that information back to the Paulsboro Board of Education. I'd like to know what your concerns are, if there are any. I do believe there are plans on their school website, and I'd like to know what you residents feel here that have children that go to Paulsboro. So that would be a big help to me. I thank you.
This time, the next board meeting will take place on August 10th at 6:30 p.m., more than likely via Zoom. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned at approximately 12:41. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you, everyone.
Jen, just 1 second. I just wanted to follow up. If you're going to do roundtables, can you let us know? So
We will absolutely communicate that. It's one of my hesitations with doing one tonight because I wouldn't properly be able to communicate that to everyone. And then once I have a firmer idea of our acceptance, let me say compliance from the state, we will provide hopefully what will seem as ample opportunity for people to hear and ask questions.
okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.